Well, thank you for joining us at Growth Track. If you would like college credit for this class, you need to head over to churchoftheheartland.com and become an official student. If you don't want to be an official student and you just want to drink in the information, take in this information, we are so glad that you're here. You are free to do that. Please do that. This is Communication Skills number 4, and I am Pastor Chris Petty. And we are well underway with how to be a better communicator. So I just began to get into the subject of eye contact, and maybe I can skip some here in my notes. But I mentioned that eye contact is very important. You want to make eye contact with as many people as you can. And in a large group, I heard years ago someone say to do, I think they called it the eye scan. And so that's, you make your point and you quickly go and you try to make as much eye contact with as many people as you can in the room when you make one point. And I know that I've certainly been in those situations where it felt like he was looking right at me. And to my point earlier, but it tended to be on good things, not like anything negative looking at me. So I want to encourage you to, it might be difficult for some of you, but to try to make eye contact. So I told that story earlier. Now, last Sunday, I'm still working on it. I made way more eye contact. Again, it was something I didn't even realize that I had gotten away from. And it was, I think it was so much better. So I'm working on it. I'm trying to be better. So making eye contact. So one gentleman that I found said, and I'm not there yet, but he said, one thought, one person. Ooh, yikes. That seems like a really long time. But this is like a speech coach, a professional speech teacher. Make one thought, one person. If you've got the guts to do that, if you can do that, more power to you. I think that would be a great thing. I'm working up to it. That just seems hard to me. But so eye contact. And then I want to share with you about the use of emotion. The use of emotion. Now, sometimes I get guilty. I feel a little guilty about the use of emotion. And I don't want it to come off as manipulative or anything like that. But I just believe, and I've been told, that the more emotions that a person can feel during your message or your speech or your sermon, the more deeply that they can feel and the more emotions that they can encounter, the more it will connect with them, the more likely they are to respond and to remember it. So I shared with you last week, I believe it was class number 2, I talked about how to grab the attention, and we gave several examples of how to get the audience's attention right away. And there's a number of different ways to do that, but I mentioned the use of humor. Now that's something that I personally use. I usually look for a joke that I can connect with the topic that I'm talking about. And I don't know that it's cheesy. The folks that hear me regularly sort of probably are accustomed to that. And they're usually probably kind of queued up, and it's sort of easy to get them to laugh. A different audience might be a little different. They don't know your personality as well, and I've experienced that. I've learned the hard way that just because the folks that listen to me every week laugh easily, a new audience doesn't necessarily know. They don't know if I'm being sarcastic. They might think I'm coming off as snotty and mean. They might not know. So try to be as aware of your new audience, and again, be sensitive, be paying attention, be surveying the room. But when you're speaking, you want to, this goes back to class 2, you want to endear the audience to yourself. You want to give them a reason to trust you. All right, so we talk about the use of emotion, and so humor is appropriate. I don't want to revisit this too much, but you'll recall that I said using a little humor is appropriate, it's right, it's good. I even use it in a tasteful, sensitive way at a funeral to just sort of lighten the heaviness a little. I don't want crazy laughter or people falling out of their seats, but I think it's perfectly appropriate to get a smile or, yes, Aunt so-and-so she certainly was like that, wasn't she? So I think that's appropriate. But again, be yourself. Don't be silly. Don't take it too far. And don't take yourself too serious. So I found this great quote from Joel Osteen. I think he interviewed for some magazine. And they were talking about how he didn't take himself too seriously and his use of humor. And he says, as it says in 1 Corinthians, you know what? You already know what Corinthians says. Let's move on. And it was pretty clear that he had lost his train of thought. And he wasn't trying to hide that. It was more tongue-in-cheek. If you remember last time. It was obvious what he was doing, and everybody laughed, and it was great. So don't take yourself too seriously, but humor is certainly appropriate. Now, the other side of that, I say the more emotions that you can make someone feel. I try to keep away from anger. I don't want them to be angry. That's an emotion that we're not looking for. Depression, we try to steer clear of that one. But I do try to, and most of you know, you've been in messages or you've heard a story or somebody, like maybe a preacher, can just say something and it will move you to tears. It's just such a powerful thing, and maybe they're so emotional about it. And I have done that a few times accidentally, but I'm not great at doing that. And so what I have done is I will use a story. So I'll usually start with humor, and then I will very, very often put a story at the end. Don't tell anybody at my church that I do this. But I'll very often put a story at the end, because then they'll start to notice it, more. That it is a tearjerker. It's either inspiring or, it has some positive message that connects to what I'm saying, but I don't do it to say, look what I can do. I can make people cry. Because I'm not really that good at doing that thing just sort of naturally. So I use stories, and I do that on purpose. And what's funny about that is that I find with those stories, I have to practice them because I come unglued when I'm delivering the story. So the first class we have, and I apologize if you're just tuning in to class 4, you may need to go and revisit class 1. Some of you will recall that I told a story about a taxi cab driver, right? And it was sort of his confessional, and he picked up an elderly woman that was not in a big hurry to arrive at her destination because she was going to a hospice. Her doctor said that she didn't have very long. Okay, and I know, I couldn't help but notice some people struggled a little bit there to hold back. I totally did that to you on purpose. That was all on purpose. I wanted to bring tears. That was totally on purpose. And it wasn't to manipulate or be cheesy or weird or anything, but I want the message to connect. I wanted you to feel it. And so there was some humor that we had. And truthfully, and maybe you shouldn't go back and check this, that story was difficult to connect. I found it difficult to find a tear-jerking story that connected with Class 1 in a perfect way. So I sort of massaged and molded and manipulated that story and kind of jammed it in and kicked it into place to try to make it fit what I was talking about. But I wanted to illustrate what I think is a powerful thing to do. And you may notice, and I didn't fake this. I don't need to fake it. But some of you may have noticed during the telling of the story, my voice got a little weak too. That's not fake. That's not cheesy. I don't think you should fake that stuff. I think if you have a story that's a tearjerker, try to get through it the best you can, and God help you, because they're hard to get through. But if you do get weak like that, your voice quivers a bit, is that going to help you or hurt you in your presentation? That doesn't hurt you. That's going to help you to accomplish that. So is that all right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe you can straighten me out afterwards. Again, I want people to connect. I want them to feel it. I want them to connect on an intellectual level and on a logical level. But if they feel it deeply, I think it sinks into the heart more. And so again, you might have a natural gift to do that. I haven't found my natural gift to do that yet. So I will intentionally find a story and stick it in there. And I hope that folks become emotional. Now I don't want weeping and sobbing. I've got a good friend that he's an emotional guy, right? So guys sometimes have trouble with being emotional, and it's perfectly appropriate for a guy to shed tears if it's for the right thing. It has to be for the right thing, guys, okay? But guys don't like that. I'll tell you, as a public speaker, bring it on, man. I mean, that's helpful. And I got a friend that every time he talks about almost anything, he's an emotional guy. He gets teared up at birthday parties, at just almost anything. And he always says, I'm sorry. And he always, I'm so sorry. And I've told him, I don't know how many times, don't apologize for that. That's powerful. When you get up there and you struggle to say how much you love your wife or how happy you are when your child is born, that's awesome, man. Bring it. Don't apologize for that stuff. Let it go. I mean, that's a powerful tool. So I don't want to manipulate or be dorky or just be, a weirdo or anything, but I just think it helps you to make your point. All right. So that's the use of emotion in public speaking. So now we're going to get to one that I'm weak on this. I need help on this, but I couldn't ignore it as I studied and as I looked over and tried to find some new ways to improve my own public speaking, and that is to practice. To practice. I think I have practiced a sermon one time in my life. Now, it was a great compliment I was sharing with I said, I'm doing growth track, I'm teaching communication skills, and one of the things that's on there that I think it's important, I'm convinced, I've become convinced, but I don't do it, is to practice what it is that you're going to say. And, it was great. He said, I can't believe that. I can't believe that you don't practice. I never would have guessed that. Well, that was a great compliment. Thank God for it. But everything, I don't know, some of us in the place, it might seem that just feels sort of unnatural. But I've discovered some amazing things about practicing your message. Mark Twain said, I'm quoting Mark Twain because if you don't believe me, you should believe Mark Twain, right? Here's a quote, all right? Mark Twain said, it usually takes me more than 3 weeks to prepare a good impromptu speech. Anytime a quote says Mark Twain, I'm going to read it. Anybody know what I mean? Like, he has great things to say. What's the point? He practices what he's going to say. One communicator said to practice like crazy. And I'm going to give you a quote, and I don't entirely know what this means, but I still think it's good. Maybe you can explain it to me. But he says that 95% of your results are worked out while you practice. So what does that mean? 95% of your results are worked out while you practice. That's unclear to me. He's a public speaker, so maybe he could have communicated that better. But I think what he's saying is that any problems that you might have or any difficulties or something that you might forget or maybe you don't say it quite clearly enough, if you practice, you're going to figure that stuff out then. And so then when you communicate it before your audience, it's going to come across so much better. So I've survived this long. What if I practice? And I do think this is valuable as one person after another said this is something that we should do. So that's why I'm teaching it to you. So do as I say, not as I do, or as I plan to do. I did a little bit of it before tonight. I didn't have an opportunity to do a lot, but I do think it's powerful. And here's why. Someone said, and this is an article I think I found on public speaking, whenever you see a leader who communicates so well it looks effortless, know that there's a lot of practice that went into it. Isn't that a great quote? Whenever you see someone that speaks in a way that looks effortless, know that there's a lot of practice that went into it. So they know it well. It's deep down in their heart. It's on the forefront of their minds. They've gone through it. And I know that there's a lot of things that look good on paper or when written. And when I speak it, it's for the first time is what I do. And when I speak it for the first time, sometimes it was clear in my head, but I have a difficult time articulating that and communicating that in a way. I took a shortcut and had the thought, have it on paper, have the thought or the idea on paper or electronically, as the case may be. But then when I went to actually speak it, it didn't quite come out right. So I can really see an advantage to this. And so I love that quote. Here's another one. Have you ever heard someone say that they want to seem authentic on stage, so they didn't practice their speech? Okay, I might have said that a couple weeks ago. Although it may seem contradictory, the more you practice a presentation, the more spontaneous it will actually sound. That goes against how I've been doing it for a long time. But that makes sense to me, right? That makes sense. I don't think I need to explain it to you. And here's the worst thing, some of the best advice that you will hate, is to record yourself or listen to audio recordings of your public speaking. It's awful. It's painful. I hate it. I have actively avoided it. I did it early in my speaking career, and it was helpful. You know, your voice always sounds sort of strange to you, and I don't know, maybe my voice sounds strange to others as well. But it's so weird and cringy that I prefer to avoid it. Anybody ever recorded or had a speech recorded and you listened to it? Did you make it through the whole thing? Yeah, sometimes I can't make it, like I couldn't even make it through the whole thing. So recently, and so this came up over and over and over as I studied for materials and what I wanted to share with you. And so this came up a lot, and I'm thinking, oh, of course, they're going to say, I know, it's such a good idea, you know. And I think I heard Pastor Heath recently recommend this to someone as well. And it's so awful. But recently there's a little project that we're doing at the church. The details aren't important, but I decided I would listen to this sermon. And I was going to do some editing and make it a little shorter, and there were some things that weren't appropriate for what I wanted to use it for. And so I had to listen and edit. So when you're editing it, you have to go back and rewind a lot to get to splice it up and find the right spot. And so I had to listen to this message. And it was a good message. Like, I picked it because I thought it was really good. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, okay, it's not horrible, right? That's what makes it good. It's not horrible. But listening to your own voice, and there was even a few moments where you're like, hey, not bad, Petty, not bad. But I really discovered some things. I must confess, I haven't done this in years and years and years. And this is just a couple months ago. And I discovered some really annoying things, at least to me. I hope it's not to everybody, but I found some things about my public speaking in what I consider to be a good message that I found annoying. And those are things that I'm addressing. Those are things that I'm trying to overcome. And so, you know, I do this for a living. I don't think I'm great, but I'm at least sort of used to it. I don't have a lot of the fear and the butterflies. So I'm past that kind of thing. So you'd think that I wouldn't find a whole lot to be discouraged about. Well, really not discouraged. It still was decent, but I found some ways that I could improve. And so as much as you will dislike it, and I don't know if video changes it at all. I find I'm not as disgusted watching myself on video as I am just hearing myself. The audio seems to me to be so much worse. Okay, but it's important. You're gonna find things. Wouldn't you rather iron those things out on your own in the privacy of your own home or something with your earphones in, rather than let it come out before an audience? Okay, so I want to get to, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit here. I want to get to how to overcome fear of public speaking. And if we can move through this, I've got plenty of more, but I want to share with you how to overcome the fear of public speaking. Mark Twain, again, said there are only two types of speakers in the world: the nervous and the liars. All right, so everybody is a little nervous before a speech. And you've probably heard this before. I've heard it. I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard that you need to be a little on edge to be sharp. And I suppose that's true. I saw a public speaker recently just say, talking about public speaking, and saying, you know how you always have to go to the bathroom before it's time to give your speech. She said that will never go away. You're never going to lose that. And she gave some good reasons why that is. It's not fear. It's I wish I had time to get into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system and what your body does. It's the fight or flight response. And so if the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, you might not want to stop to use the restroom. And so your body prepares for situations where you may not have the opportunity. Like there hasn't been a sermon yet where I've had to stop and walk out of the room. right? So that would be weird. Your body's preparing, okay? So the speaker said you'll never lose that. Well, I've done this for a while. I don't get that nervous, but there must be a heightened sense of awareness. I don't want to come in and just sleep through this. So if you're a little nervous, that's okay. If you're a lot nervous, that's okay. I'm going to teach you how to overcome that right here and right now. So I may have mentioned this last time, but someone has said after food, water, and shelter, and those basic needs are met, that we have a need for prestige, that we're constantly evaluating where we're at in the room and amongst the people that we're with, and it doesn't even happen on a conscious level. Well, that makes sense why you might be afraid of public speaking. There certainly will be people judging you. Is that a real thing? I think without a doubt that's a real thing. But as I mentioned earlier, I think the group that you're speaking before is mostly with you. They want to see you succeed. No one wants to see someone struggle and have difficulty through a speech. I don't think anybody likes that. So and maybe it's a mind game I'm playing on myself, but I think that when I stand before an audience, unless they're just rotten scoundrels out there, they're rooting for me. They want me to do well. They want me to succeed. And they will help me to do that as much as it is within their power to do it. They will laugh at my jokes that aren't that funny just because if we don't, it's more awkward for him and for us, right? So I think that the audience, especially in a church setting, they're rooting for you, right? So just understand that. So if you're a little nervous, number one, if you're a little nervous, that's okay. That doesn't mean that things are going to go poorly. And I heard someone say too, that I thought this was great. Even if you're nervous, that doesn't mean that you're not giving a great speech. I mean, that's worth the price of tuition for those of you that are official students right there. Just because you're nervous doesn't mean that you're not giving a great speech. You can give a great speech and still be nervous. All right? I thought that was wonderful. Next, I would encourage you to focus on the topic. Don't focus on your performance. It's important to focus on your performance. That's why you want to practice, and yes, even video record yourself giving your speech or your presentation. That's really how you should work out some of your performance during the presentation or the speech or the sermon. But for you to really focus on all those things that you might be doing wrong during your speech, it's not going to go well for you. You really need to focus on the topic. During the break, we talked about some difficult situations. Kathy had a great story. I'm going to steal that story. I'm going to use that about how people were laughing during a presentation that she was giving many years ago, and she found out, and she plowed through. She just plowed through it and made it through it. But obviously, it's sort of this soundtrack in the back of your mind as you're speaking. And she found out later that they were laughing about something else that was happening in the room, unrelated to her. It wasn't something that she was doing, and so I might not lie to myself and tell them, oh, it's somebody else. It certainly couldn't be me, right? You want to be aware of what's going on in the room. But there are things that are happening that have nothing to do with you. And maybe there's a group of people that are laughing and you didn't just tell a joke. It might have nothing to do with you. So I would encourage you to focus on the topic. I use the phrase, just plow through. Plow through it. Get the job done. You're there to do a job. You're there to make an impact. You're there to accomplish something. Don't allow someone to throw you off, and don't allow yourself to throw you off. I've had times where I've spoken and I haven't been, well, let's just say I've been less than pleased with how I've done. And so when you feel like you did a particularly poor job, it's easy to begin to focus on your performance. And I can remember one of these times. That's not a story that I will tell you. It's not a story that I will tell you. Maybe after class. But But I just told myself, just relax. You've done this before. You had a bad time last time, but you're a professional. You'll get through this. You can do it. Just relax and focus on the subject matter at hand. So, is that helpful? Another thing that I heard someone say recently is that, and this is so powerful, that you don't look as nervous as you feel. I mean, fantastic if you don't look as nervous as you feel. Now, sometimes, have you ever seen a speaker that looks nervous? How'd that make you feel? I mean, there's something wrong if you were enjoying that. I mean, I've never enjoyed that. So, but you don't want to be that person. So that's why you want to practice ahead of time and know the subject that you're speaking about. But I think it's so powerful that if you feel nervous and you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous, and you become so self-conscious of that, you're not as nervous as you don't look as nervous as you feel. Someone has also said that nervousness is very similar to excitement. That there have been those that have thought they were nervous, and then after some time before a performance, or I think it was a quote from a musician that said, after a while I recognized that I really wasn't that nervous, but I was just excited, and I was not recognizing the difference between those two things. So that's a few keys on how to overcome nervousness. Remember, you're not as nervous. You don't look as nervous as you are. And even though you may be nervous, that doesn't mean that you're not giving a great speech. All right, quickly, be aware of your ums. You can work this out in your practice. Now, why didn't I start class 1 talking about ums? Because I do it sometimes, and I don't want you to be counting them for 4 classes. Maybe you already are, I don't know. But I bring it up at the end. So I looked at class 1, I looked at class 2, there's a few ums in there. Someone said to me recently, this is not a speech coach or anything like that, just somebody who doesn't speak for a living, but they said that they heard, like in high school in speech class, that ums are the result of we don't like silence. That silence makes us nervous. And we feel that if we're uncomfortable during a speech presentation, that we feel the need to fill that silence. And so that's something, I don't think I'm horrible at this. I know I do it a little, and a little bit is not the end of the world. Nobody notices if it's done a little bit. But I didn't get to it. But there's power in dramatic pauses. There's real power in dramatic pauses. They feel weird. They can feel a little weird. Even if I'm not saying, the dramatic pause can sometimes it can sometimes feel a little strange. But you can actually regain the attention. You think that you have to be throwing out volume and words and doing cartwheels or whatever it is to keep the attention of folks, when a pause can actually do that for you. So don't be afraid to just pause and take it easy for a moment. All right, that is all the time we have. It's the last day of school, so I'm ending 58 seconds early. That is my gift to the students. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure.